I would say in the mid-'80s, I went to my friend Mark's house and I saw he had this toy. This is the Supermobile. I know when Mark watches this video, he's going to say, "No, I never actually had that." But I know you had it, Mark. I can't be wrong every time. He had, look, Generation X, we were Marvel kids. DC Comics were our dad's comics. But for whatever reason, no, I know the reason, Mark was a DC kid before comics because the Super Friends cartoon had a hold over him like nothing has had a hold over anyone before. And so he had all of the Superpowers toys. And speaking of which, the Superpowers, he had the Supermobile for that as well. And it was different. But before we get to that, this is from Corgi Toys. This was a UK toy company named after the dog breed. Basically, it was around 1956 to 1983. 1978 was their biggest year, and this, I believe, came out in 1979. Check this out. Oh, now it's not going to work? Come on. There. Isn't that awesome? Pew! I love that. So, and it's got little wheels on the... Oh, no, it doesn't. They're just little stubs. So there are different versions of this. There is a larger one, like this big. So this would have been called a Corgi Junior. Even though it just says Corgi, they stopped calling them Corgi Juniors maybe in the mid-'70s, but this would have been a Corgi Junior. The regular Corgi one was about this big. And it wasn't just Superman's head painted inside with just red plastic. He was fully painted, and he had his little heads-up display thing where he could shoot his X-ray vision and heat vision and stuff like that through. And it had different variants like silver fists and red fists, and it had actual rolling wheels on the bottom. I didn't get that one because I wanted the one that Mark had. Yes, you had it, Mark. Now, the Superpowers toys version was, of course, bigger and would hold the Superman action figure in it, but it didn't have the punching fists. Instead, it had like a battering ram underneath. So when, I think maybe it was a button on the bottom, but there was a button just like this, and instead of it making the fists come out, it made the battering ram come out. Not as fun. And the canopy was red, and you could, I think, press on the... No. You just lift it up and put Superman in. Also, underneath, it had these red circles of rubber where it's cut out triangles all around so that you could push another action figure's fist through, and then he would be stuck. And that was some kind of like a prison where you could capture your enemies and fly them away, but you're basically carrying them by one wrist, their full body weight at flight, hanging by a wrist. That would, what kind of torture is that? So, McFarlane Toys has been now putting out a new Superpowers collection of toys and action figures and what have you. And they have a Supermobile, and it is this version, and with the punching fists and all that, instead of those goofy put your fist through the thing, it has these open up compartments on the wings for you to store your bad guys in as a jail. So that's even cooler. Oh, and that one has you press on the S and the hood pops up. So that's it for the toy of the Supermobile. Where did it come from and why does it exist? Well, it comes from this comic here. Let's take a look. This is Action Comics issue 481. It's from March of 1978, and this is the Whitman Comics variant. It's not a reprint. Whitman Comics, they licensed comics in real time from DC, where they would also put out their version, but whereas the DC version would go to newsstands, 7-Elevens, your spinner rack, stuff like that, Whitman would put them in bags, and it was the early version of the direct market. It wasn't for comic stores, it was for toy stores, Kmart's, department stores, stuff like that. And they would be in bags of 3. And they are actually, even though I got the Whitman version because it was cheaper than the regular version, they are more rare than the regular DC Comics version. Now, this cover is drawn by Jose Luis Garcia Lopez, and he is the artist that did that big book. I'm drawing a blank on the name, but it was the guidebook that all DC did all of their marketing art from, and I showed it here on YouTube, and it's got a quadrillion views. Anyways, he does not do the art on the interior. Inside, all of the art is drawn by your classic Superman artist, Curt Swan. And this is a story by Cary Bates. We start off with your Batman and Robin Hostess cupcakes ad. And we go right into the story. Superman is being attacked by this android named Amazo, who has used an energy beam to melt the street beneath them. They're trapped, and now he's going to punch them into oblivion. It's Superman and just some random guy. No, it's not a random guy. It's actually the professor that built Amazo. And there he goes. He slams them into oblivion. They are dead. End of comic. No, just kidding. Actually, they've been transported back to the Fortress of Solitude. You see, Superman does not have any powers, so he had to set up this transporter thing as a failsafe just in case. And it was activated by a hidden device in his mouth. Now he takes the professor to the bottled city of Kandor, and he talks about a piece of equipment that he built to help him in this fight. But first, he has to write in his diary, in his Kryptonian language, about where he's been and where he's going. In the meantime, Amazo has followed him right into the Fortress of Solitude. But before he kills Superman again, I'll tell you what he wrote in his diary. What happened was there was a giant star that blew up eons ago, and the red radiation from it has finally made its way to Earth, and in orbit around the Earth is the Justice League of America satellite where all of the superheroes were, and they were keeping Amazo in suspended animation and depowered. The radiation came through, it deactivated the space station, stranding all of the superheroes there. It reanimated Amazo and gave him all his powers back, and those powers are all of the powers of the entire Justice League. And Superman escaped to go back to Earth because he knew once the radiation hits him, he is then going to lose his powers. So he made it back to the Fortress of Solitude just in time to build a device. Then he lost his powers, and let's resume the story because I think I'm up to speed. All right, first he unleashes an animal from his zoo there in the Fortress of Solitude, and Amazo uses the powers of Elongated Man. How does he know he's not using the powers of Plastic Man? And then he's using a Sonic Whammy, which is a power from the Black Canary. So what's next? Oh, out comes the Supermobile. And here is the heads-up display, so he can look through and do all of his powers. Amazo catches the Supermobile with the Wonder Woman lasso of justice or truth or whatever it's called. And he takes him for a ride. The battle continues. Amazo is using Green Lantern's powers to no avail. Can't do anything against the Supermobile. He tries to super breath freeze the Arctic Ocean, and here comes the heat vision bringing him right on out. And on the satellite for the Justice League, Amazo left their TV on so they could watch his continuing exploits and feel helpless. But they're actually getting to watch the Supermobile in action, where they can see it's invulnerable. And that's where Batman deduces that it is made of supermanium. This is the most powerful, most indestructible metal in the universe. It made its first appearance in World's Finest, issue 41 from 1949, where Superman forged the metal out of the core of a star. It is so invulnerable, it can only be softened up by Superman's heat vision and can only be molded by Superman's strength. And he used it to create a jail for Brainiac, and now it has made its return all these years later in the form of the Supermobile, a device he constructed to actually replicate all of his powers. It's interesting because you could put Jimmy Olsen in this ship, you could put Batman in this ship, and now you've got two Supermen. So I don't know why they didn't use the Supermobile more, but we're off and running. So how would Superman lose his powers? Well, how does he get his powers? So he comes from Krypton, which orbited a red sun and had a heavier gravity. Then he comes to Earth, lower gravity, yellow sun. What does all that mean? Because the sun is actually white. It just kind of looks yellow. Well, yes, the color yellow comes to our eyes. It has all of the colors of the light spectrum when you put it through a prism, but it is referred to as a yellow dwarf. That is our sun. It just means it's small and we see it as yellow. But there are red suns. They are red giants. Our sun will become a red giant in 5 billion years. A red giant is so big that when our sun becomes a red giant, it will engulf Mercury, Venus, and probably out to Earth. That's how big it'll be. In order to be in orbit around a red giant, you'd have to be a lot further out, and there are, of course, planets we've found around red giants, and they are gigantic, like bigger than Jupiter or whatever. They're super gigantic. If they're that big, of course the gravity would be immense by exponential amounts. So you can imagine a man living on that type of a planet around that type of a star in comic book thoughts and parlance would become so much more powerful coming here. I don't know if that really works out in science, but who cares? It's comic books. Well, the battle continues. All kinds of powers on display. See, he can even drive. So Superman wants to fly by his friends, Lois, Jimmy, and Lana, to let them know he's still alive. He wasn't killed when he was smashed through the street a few pages back. That, of course, gives Amazo the opportunity to say, look, now I know who your friends are. Either sacrifice the professor that created me, the guy I really want to kill, and that you're hiding, or I'm gonna kill all your friends. What a cliffhanger. This story continues in the next 2 issues, and by issue 483, Superman has got his powers back and defeats Amazo. I'm going to get those next 2 issues because this was an exciting story to read. I liked it. I am actually hanging by a thread after that cliffhanger. I want to see how it resolves itself. And I do love this toy. And maybe you never had it, Mark, but I have it now. And I'm just having a little fun with Superman comics because I really enjoy the new movie, and I hope you do as well because I want to see this kind of stuff continue. So what'd you think? Leave it in the comments below, and press the like and the subscribe and the bell notification. See you next time.